So I'd like to introduce the Senior Vice President and General Manager at Illumina, who has been there for 7 years, and he is now setting up their Translational and Consumer Genomics Division. Please welcome Matt Posard.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Good, thanks for staying for me. The only thing between me and the reception right now is about 80 slides and about 60 minutes of lecture, which will feel like 5 minutes if I do my job. So will you bear with me? Okay. Last weekend, I was at the dinner table with my kids, and as I'm sure many of you do, if you don't, you should, you have a word of the day when you have that family dinner. And ubiquitous, or ubiquity, actually, was the word that my 12-year-old son brought to the table. And it was actually the word he got misspelled on a spelling test. So that was kind of the topic at dinner, and it dovetailed beautifully into this presentation that one of my colleagues in the back put together for me. Because in the process of introducing a new service that Illumina introduced called Understand Your Genome, we were trying to contextualize the timing of giving individuals their genome and giving them the control of their genome. And so I was talking to Ethan, and we were talking about once in a while, there are these revolutionary discoveries or inventions that over time cause things to be ubiquitous. And so I'm going to give you a very quick rundown of one of the ones that we talked about. And this was one that I think is about 160 years old, right, when the first commercially produced light bulb was produced. And the point I'm trying to draw to him and hopefully to you is that over time, these things become ubiquitous in ways that are completely beyond the vision of the visionaries that were responsible for the discoveries or even the inventions. And so here's another one, which was just 10 years later, where communication completely revolutionized the world in 1880s, let's say. And here we are today where the complaint is, to my kids anyway, get off your phone, right? We're having to talk about ubiquity. We also talked about air travel, which drives me nuts because the part of my job that I dislike the most is traveling, right? And this probably would have been a sin in the 50s, right? How could somebody complain about air travel? Well, you all can relate to that. Where we are today is completely beyond the concept of what the Wright brothers were even thinking about when they had their famous flight in North Carolina. And here we are, I guess, get my math right, about 60 years, maybe 50 years from space. And it was initially done for political reasons, quite frankly, right? We were losing to Russia or the USSR, and we had to make sure that we were seen as the world leader by being the first to get on the moon. And where we are today is we all have access to these cell phones and the internet and everything else because of the satellites that our investment in spacecraft created. So the question now is, and if what these gentlemen discovered 60 years ago, and what the government and Craig Ventnor made public about 10 years ago, is now at an inflection point that beyond the wonderful efforts of your organization and thousands of organizations where sequencing is being performed at a rate completely unanticipated by the producers of sequencing. Illumina's most common meeting in San Diego is defending a wrong forecast. And we're often wrong from a manufacturing point of view on the wrong end of things. So the amount of sequencing that's happening right now is blowing everybody away, quite frankly. And so I think yesterday's rules of how to make that information accessible in cohorts to students, to professionals, and to consumers is frankly at a pace that's going to be outside of everybody's control in this room, outside of anybody's control in a single committee. And so what we all have to do, obviously, as stewards in this is be responsible, be transparent, but not hide behind yesterday's rules or yesterday's paradigms that are completely going to be out of date, just like some of those images that I showed you in the early years of those inventions. So what Illumina imparted on late last year was an Understand Your Genome event. Some of you participated in that. Some of you actually presented at that. And what we wanted to do was to make sure that professionals in the industry, physicians, researchers, pathologists, informaticians, venture capital people even, all of them had an incredibly intimate, protected experience to get their genome among their peers. Private if they wanted to share it, they were obviously able to do that, and quite frankly, just about everybody shared theirs. So we found what the ego gene is, and I'll share that with you later. But the point of this conference was to talk about the ethical issues around giving people their genomic information. What are the legal issues? What are the quality limitations? When we say CLIA, what does that mean today, and what's that going to mean 10 years from now? Because by definition of where we are on this evolution curve, it is completely going to change. And we have to be honest about that. We don't sequence 100% of the genome at Illumina. And we have to be honest about the regions we do cover and those that we don't. We also have to be really honest about the information that we're reporting back that we think is actionable and that which is not actionable. So on an iPad, as part of the Understand Your Genome event, we will deliver you your own iPad. We'll deliver you your own genome. This is all going through a physician. So your physician will have had time to talk to you about the information. You can tell the genetic counselors at Illumina what you want and what you don't want. I've actually just gone through this, and my doctor spent 2.5 hours with me and said, these are the things you got to really think through. Ran into Francis Collins at a company event, told him about how excited I was about getting my genome done, and he lectured me because he said, you have to sit down with all 3 of your kids. You got to sit down with your mom and dad, your brother, because they're part of this too. And so the more we actually go down this path, the more considerations that we're constantly becoming aware of and being sensitive to. So I invite you to the Understand Your Genome event if you're able to attend. We have these just about every 3 to 5 months. And I expect over time this will become a much more frequent activity. The next one we're doing is in 2 weeks, and these do tend to sell out because we keep the groups very small. I'll leave you with this, and that is, on this iPad, in seconds, I can look at all of my chromosomes at one time, and I can look at the variants on each of the chromosomes, those that are deleterious and those that are not, as deemed by multiple clinical geneticists that are kind of cross-checking each other. These are all CLIA standards. I could look at genes, I could look at variants, I could actually go down to the individual base pair. And at the next Understand Your Genome event, we will be providing people 1,600 clinical genes of information that relate directly to them. And I hope when I present next time, that 1,600 is going to seem like a distant memory, and we continue to expand this, and I hope you can all participate in that. So thank you.